The war had no beginning that anyone could remember. It simply was, like the stars themselves, eternal and unchanging. In the Calric sector, two great powers had fought for so long that the very space between them was littered with the debris of a million battles. Broken ships drifted in silent graveyards, monuments to conflicts that no one alive could explain. Commander Jaltev stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crystalline Dawn, and watched the enemy fleet take position across the void. His body, made of living crystal that pulsed with soft blue light, remained perfectly still. He had fought in 400 campaigns. His grandfather had fought in 600. His grandfather's grandfather had fought in 800. The numbers stretched back so far that they lost all meaning. Across from him, separated by 3 million kilometers of empty space, the Thrain hegemony assembled their forces. Their ships were organic things, grown rather than built, covered in chitinous armor that gleamed like black oil under the light of distant stars. Inside those ships, insectoid creatures with 6 legs and compound eyes prepared for battle with the same ritualistic precision that their ancestors had used for 800,000 years. This was the way of things. This was how it had always been. Jaltev's second officer, a younger Vorth named Prelman, approached with the daily tactical report. The crystalline being's light flickered nervously, a sign of youth and inexperience. Commander, the enemy has deployed in Formation 7. Shall we respond with Counter Formation 12? Of course, Jaltev replied, his voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. What else would we do? What else indeed? The Vorth had exactly 47 battle formations. The Thrain had 47 counter formations. Each side knew what the other would do in every situation. They had been fighting the same battles in the same systems, using the same tactics for longer than most civilizations had existed. The war was not about winning anymore. It was about continuing. It was about honor and tradition and the way things had always been done. The Vorth believed they were defending their territory from aggressors. The Thrain believed exactly the same thing. Neither side could remember what the original dispute had been about. Some said it was about a resource-rich planet. Others claimed it was an insult delivered by an ambassador millions of years dead. A few historians suggested it might have been an accident, a misunderstanding that spiraled out of control. It didn't matter. The war was their identity now. Without it, what would they be? All ships advance to engagement range, Jaltev ordered. Maintain formation integrity. Fire when the enemy reaches the boundary line. The boundary line was an invisible mark in space that both sides respected. It was exactly 500,000 kilometers from the midpoint between the two fleets. When both fleets reached it simultaneously, they would open fire. Not before. Never before. That would be dishonorable. The Crystalline Dawn moved forward with its sister ships, 3,000 vessels of various sizes, all following the predetermined pattern. Across the void, the Thrain fleet mirrored their movements perfectly. In exactly 17 minutes, they would reach the boundary line. Then they would fire at each other for approximately 4 hours. Between 50 and 200 ships would be destroyed. The survivors would retreat. Both sides would claim victory. And in a few months, they would do it all again. Jaltev had seen this exact scenario play out hundreds of times. He felt nothing anymore. No fear, no excitement, no anger toward the enemy. Just a dull, grinding sense of duty. Commander, the communications officer interrupted. We're receiving a strange signal. Define strange, Jaltev said, not taking his attention from the tactical display. Unknown origin. Unknown language. It's broadcasting on frequencies we don't normally use for military communications. It seems to be coming from inside the sector. That got Jaltev's attention. His crystalline form brightened with surprise. Nothing entered the Calric sector. The rest of the galaxy had given up on them centuries ago. The war zone was quarantined, avoided by all sensible spacefaring species. There was nothing here worth the risk. Just two ancient civilizations locked in their eternal dance of destruction. Show me, he commanded. The display shifted, showing a sensor reading that made no sense. A single contact, moving through the system at a speed that seemed impossibly fast. Not a Vorth ship, not a Thrain ship, something else entirely. Get me a visual, Jaltev ordered, his voice sharp with urgency. The screen flickered and then displayed an image that made every Vorth on the bridge fall silent. The ship was massive, easily twice the size of their largest battleship. But it was the design that shocked them. It was smooth where their ships were angular. It had none of the organic curves of Thrain vessels or the geometric precision of Vorth construction. It was something completely different, something that looked almost predatory in its sleek efficiency. Unknown vessel, this is the Vorth Collective, Zhaltev broadcast. You have entered a restricted war zone. State your intentions immediately. There was no response. The alien ship continued on its course, seemingly unaware of the two massive fleets preparing for battle. Prellman's light flickered with anxiety. Commander, what do we do? The Thrain are also broadcasting to it. What if they recruit this newcomer? What if this is some kind of Thrain trick? Zhaltev considered his options. 800,000 years of war had taught the Vorth to be suspicious of anything unusual. Change was dangerous. The unknown was a threat. And this ship, this impossible alien vessel, represented both. Divert the fleet, he decided. New priority target. We need to determine if this is a threat or a potential ally. Send a welcoming committee of 300 ships. If they refuse to communicate, we will demonstrate our power. They will either join us or leave our sector. Across the void, the Thrain Supreme General Krixtor was making an identical decision. His compound eyes tracked the alien ship on his organic display screens. His mandibles clicked together in agitation. In 800,000 years, nothing had interrupted the war. Nothing had changed the pattern. And now this. Send our warriors, he commanded his subordinates. Intercept the alien. Bring it to us for examination. If it resists, destroy it. We cannot allow the Vorth to gain an advantage. Neither commander realized that they had both just made the same decision. Neither knew that they were both sending their fleets to converge on the same target at the same time. And neither had any idea that the newcomer they were so casually threatening was from a species called humanity, a species that had learned warfare in ways they could not possibly imagine. The alien ship, the UTCN Indomitable Will, continued its peaceful exploration of the system. Its captain, Admiral Chen Zhao, was reviewing survey data and preparing first contact protocols. He was hoping to make friends, to establish trade, to learn about this ancient region of space. He had no idea that in less than an hour, he would be forced to end an 800,000-year war in 50 minutes. Admiral Chen Zhao had always dreamed of this moment. First contact with an alien civilization, the chance to extend the hand of friendship across the stars, the opportunity to prove that humanity had learned from its bloody past and could be a force for peace in the galaxy. He stood on the bridge of the Indomitable Will, a ship that represented the best of human engineering and the hopes of an entire species. Around him, his crew worked quietly at their stations, monitoring systems and analyzing the data that poured in from their sensors. They had been exploring for 6 months, jumping from system to system, finding nothing but empty planets and dead rocks. Until now. Captain, we're detecting massive energy signatures throughout this sector, Lieutenant Sarah Park reported from the sensor station. Hundreds of ships. No, thousands. They seem to be gathered in 2 distinct groups. Chen leaned forward in his chair, his dark eyes sharp with interest. Military vessels? Definitely military, sir. Both groups are heavily armed. Energy readings consistent with fusion-based weapons, plasma projection systems, and basic missile technology. The designs are unlike anything in our database. We're looking at 2 completely different species here. Chen felt his heart rate increase. 2 alien species, both with military fleets. This could be a war zone. He needed to be careful. Humanity had only achieved faster-than-light travel 40 years ago. They were the newcomers here, the children stumbling into an adult's house. Caution was required. Open all communication channels, he ordered. Broadcast in every language our AI can generate. Let them know we come in peace and wish to establish diplomatic relations. The communications officer nodded and began transmitting. Chen hoped that at least one of the alien species would understand the universal signs of peaceful intent. Humanity had learned painfully and at great cost that war was hell. They had nearly destroyed themselves twice, once with nuclear weapons and again with bioengineered plagues. Only the close brush with extinction had taught them to choose peace. Maybe these aliens had learned the same lesson. Sir, we're being approached, Park announced, her voice tense. Multiple contacts from both groups. 300 ships from the first group, 300 from the second. They're converging on our position. Chen straightened in his chair. 600 warships. That was a significant response. But it might just be a show of force, a way of saying, we're watching you. He had to remain calm and diplomatic. Maintain peaceful posture, he ordered. Do not power up weapons. Keep shields at standard strength. Continue broadcasting our peaceful intentions. The minutes ticked by. Chen watched as the alien fleets drew closer, their formations tight and disciplined. These were professional military forces, not pirates or raiders. That was good. Professional militaries usually followed rules and protocols. They would be reasonable. The first indication that something was wrong came when his tactical officer spoke up. Sir, I'm detecting weapons lock from multiple hostile ships. Both groups are painting us with targeting sensors. Chen frowned. Targeting sensors? That was more than just a show of force. That was preparation for combat, but why? They hadn't done anything threatening. They were just exploring. Perhaps it's standard procedure for them, he suggested. Keep broadcasting. Let them know we mean no harm. Then the first shots came. They weren't probing fire or warning shots by human standards, but Chen realized immediately that the aliens thought they were. Massive bolts of superheated plasma streaked across space toward the indomitable will. Fusion-tipped missiles followed. Energy beams crude by human standards but still dangerous lanced through the void. All weapons missed, sir, Park reported. Their targeting systems are extremely imprecise at this range. They're firing from beyond optimal engagement distance. Chen breathed a small sigh of relief, but his mind was racing. Why were they firing? What had humanity done to provoke this? He quickly reviewed the situation. The aliens had approached in force. Humanity had broadcast peaceful intentions. The aliens had opened fire. The only logical conclusion was that this was how they greeted all unknown visitors. With violence, evasive maneuvers, Chen ordered. Continue broadcasting. Try every communication protocol we have. Someone get me a linguistic analysis of any transmissions they're making. Maybe we're missing something. The indomitable will banked smoothly through space, its engines far more advanced than anything the aliens possessed. More weapons fire followed, but none of it came close. The alien targeting systems were designed for slow-moving vessels engaged in close-range combat. The human ship moved too fast and too unpredictably for them to track effectively. Sir, linguistics has something, the communications officer reported. The aliens are communicating with each other. Based on their transmissions, they seem to think we're some kind of scout ship. They're coordinating an intercept pattern. And, sir, they're both trying to either capture or destroy us. They think we're connected to the other side somehow. Chen's stomach sank. These two alien species were at war with each other, and they had both assumed humanity was connected to their enemy. This was exactly the kind of misunderstanding that led to disaster. How long until they reach optimal weapons range? He asked. At their current speed, approximately 15 minutes, Park replied. But sir, their weapons are primitive. Fusion-based plasma projectors, chemical propellant missiles, and basic directed energy weapons. Our shields are designed to handle antimatter detonations and relativistic impacts. Their weapons won't even scratch us. That should have been comforting, but Chen felt only dread. If the aliens couldn't hurt humanity but continued attacking, he would be forced to respond. And if humanity responded with their true military capability, it would be a massacre. The technological gap was enormous. It would be like a modern navy fighting wooden sailing ships. Try hailing them again, he ordered. Tell them we are not their enemy. Tell them we want peace, but the aliens didn't listen, or couldn't listen, or didn't care. The alien fleets continued their approach, and now Chen could see them clearly on the visual displays. The first group had ships that looked like they were made of crystal, beautiful and geometric, glowing with internal light. The second group had vessels that were organic, alive, covered in chitinous armor that reminded him of insects. Both groups were ancient. Both groups were powerful by their own standards, and both groups were about to make a terrible mistake. Sir, they're launching everything they have, the tactical officer reported. Full weapons release, missiles, torpedoes, energy weapons. They're throwing everything at us at once. Chen made his decision. He couldn't keep running. If he left, the aliens would think they had driven humanity away and they might pursue. If he stayed passive, they would keep attacking until they exhausted themselves or until a lucky shot damaged something critical. There was only one option left. He had to show them the truth. He had to demonstrate that humanity was not something to be trifled with. He had to make them understand that continuing this attack was suicide. All hands battle stations, Chen ordered, his voice heavy with regret. Power up all defensive systems. Charge the railguns. Prepare antimatter countermeasures. We're going to end this quickly and with minimal casualties. Around him, the bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency. Systems that had been dormant powered up with a hum of barely contained energy. The indomitable will transformed from an explorer to a weapon in the space of 30 seconds. Chen looked at the approaching alien fleets and felt a profound sadness. Humanity had come to the stars hoping to find friends, hoping to prove that intelligent beings could choose peace over war. Instead, within an hour of meeting alien life, humanity was going to war again. The only question now was whether the aliens would survive the lesson Chen was about to teach them. The first shot from the indomitable will was not meant to kill. It was meant to communicate a simple message in the only language the aliens seemed to understand, the language of overwhelming force. Chen gave the order with a heavy heart. Tactical fire 1 railgun round. Minimum velocity. Target the empty space in the center of the approaching formation. Let's see if we can get their attention without killing anyone. The railgun was a simple weapon by human standards. It used electromagnetic force to accelerate a solid projectile to enormous speeds. No explosives, no fancy energy beams, just raw kinetic energy. The round that left the indomitable will was a tungsten rod the size of a telephone pole, accelerated to 90% the speed of light in the space of a few milliseconds. What happened next would be remembered in both alien cultures as the moment their universe changed. Forever. The projectile covered the distance to the alien fleet in less than a second. It passed through the designated empty space exactly as Chen had ordered. But what the tactical computer had not accounted for was that space was not quite empty. 3 Vorth ships and 2 Thrain vessels had moved into that region in the seconds between targeting and firing. The relativistic round passed through all 5 ships like they were made of paper. No, not even paper. Like they were made of smoke. The kinetic energy was so enormous that the ships didn't just explode. They simply ceased to exist. One moment they were there, solid and real. The next moment there was nothing but superheated plasma expanding in a perfect line through space. And behind those 5 ships were 12 more. The round passed through them too, its velocity barely diminished. Then 7 more behind those. Then 3 more. The tungsten rod finally exhausted its energy after passing through 27 ships total, leaving a perfectly straight line of destruction through the alien formations. Both fleets stopped cold. Every ship froze in place. On 1,000 bridges, alien commanders stared at their displays in complete and utter disbelief. Commander Jaltev felt his crystalline body dim with shock. His light flickered rapidly, a sign of profound confusion among his kind. What had just happened? What weapon was that? How had one shot destroyed 27 ships? Across the void, Supreme General Krixtor's mandibles hung open in a gesture of pure astonishment. In 800,000 years of warfare, nothing like this had ever occurred. Nothing. On the indomitable will, Chen closed his eyes briefly. 27 ships. He had wanted to avoid casualties entirely, but the aliens had moved at the worst possible moment. 27 ships, each with crews ranging from hundreds to thousands. Tens of thousands dead in an instant. Broadcasting on all channels, sir, the communications officer said softly, trying to explain it was an accident, urging them to stand down. But the aliens were not ready to stand down. They were shocked, yes, but shock transformed quickly into determination. These were warrior cultures. They had been fighting for 800,000 years. They knew only one response to attack. Sir, both fleets are launching a combined assault, Park reported. Every ship is firing everything they have. Missiles, torpedoes, energy weapons, kinetic projectiles. Thousands of warheads incoming. Chen opened his eyes and straightened in his chair. Very well. If they insisted on learning the hard way, he would teach them. But he would do it with precision. He would do it in a way that minimized casualties while making the point absolutely clear. Humanity was not their enemy. Humanity was beyond their ability to fight. And continuing this assault was futile. Activate point defense grid, he ordered, all automatic weapons free. Engage incoming ordnance. The indomitable will's point defense system was a marvel of human engineering. Hundreds of laser turrets, each controlled by a quantum AI processor, each capable of tracking and destroying thousands of targets per second. The system had been designed to protect the ship from swarms of missiles in fleet combat, where both sides would launch planet-killing numbers of warheads at each other. Against the alien attack, it was like using a machine gun to swat flies. The lasers fired in a continuous stream of light, invisible to the human eye but devastating to everything they touched. Each alien missile or torpedo that entered a 1,000-kilometer radius of the human ship was tracked, targeted, and destroyed in less than a microsecond. The aliens watched in growing horror as their entire combined assault, the full might of both fleets, was casually swept aside without a single warhead getting close to its target. "They're not stopping, sir," Park said. "They're advancing to closer range. I think they believe their weapons will be more effective at shorter distances." Chen shook his head. These aliens had courage, he would give them that. But courage without wisdom was just stubbornness. And stubbornness would get them all killed. Tactical, target the command ships of both fleets. I want precise strikes. Hit their bridge sections with focused plasma bursts. Enough to disable their command and control, but not enough to destroy the entire vessel. Leave their life support and crew sections intact. Can you do that? Yes, sir, the tactical officer replied. Quantum entanglement targeting locks achieved. We can hit them with centimeter precision from this range. Chen nodded. Quantum entanglement targeting was technology that the aliens probably didn't even have theories about. It allowed human weapons to hit targets with perfect accuracy across any distance, bypassing the speed of light limitation on traditional sensors. It was, from the alien perspective, magic. Fire when ready. The Indomitable Will's secondary weapons, plasma projection systems designed for precision work, fired. The beams crossed the vast distance between the human ship and the alien fleets in the blink of an eye. They struck exactly where intended, burning through armor and hull plating to disable the command centers of the flagship. Vessel's commander Zaltev felt the crystalline dawn shudder as something impossibly hot carved through the ship's structure. Alarms blared. His command console exploded in a shower of sparks. Around him, other Vorth officers fell as systems overloaded. But the life support held. The crew sections remained intact. The ship was crippled but not destroyed. The same thing happened to Supreme General Krikstor's flagship, and to the flagships of every major group commander in both fleets. In the space of 5 seconds, Chen had decapitated both military forces without killing their leaders. Broadcasting again, sir, the communications officer reported, demanding they stand down. For a moment it seemed like the aliens might actually listen. The fleets drifted, leaderless and confused. Then from the secondary ships, new commanders took charge. The attack resumed. Chen sighed. They really were not going to make this easy. How many ships in total? He asked. Approximately 6,000 remaining across both fleets, sir. 6,000 ships crewed by beings who refused to accept reality. Chen looked at the tactical display and made a decision he knew would haunt him. But letting them continue to attack was not an option. They would keep coming until they were all dead or until they finally understood. Charge the main weapon, he ordered quietly. Gravity well generator full power. Target the central mass of both fleets. Then prepare one antimatter torpedo, minimum yield. The crew worked in silence. Everyone knew what was about to happen. Everyone knew it was terrible. And everyone knew it was necessary. The gravity well generator was humanity's answer to fleet combat. It created a localized distortion in space-time. A miniature black hole that pulled everything nearby into a concentrated area. It was designed to cluster enemy fleets together so that area effect weapons could hit multiple targets at once. When the Indomitable Will activated the weapon, both alien fleets felt reality itself bend. Their ships, despite their engines fighting at full power, were pulled inexorably toward a central point. Thousands of vessels compressed into a space barely a few hundred kilometers across. Then Chen fired the antimatter torpedo. 1 gram of antimatter meeting 1 gram of normal matter. The explosion was the equivalent of 20 megatons of TNT. But concentrated in a tiny area, surrounded by thousands of ships, the effect was catastrophic. 73% of both fleets vanished in an instant. Not destroyed, not crippled. Simply gone, converted to energy and plasma in a blast of light that would be visible from 3 star systems away. When the light faded, less than 2,000 ships remained of the combined fleets, and finally, mercifully, they stopped fighting. Chen broadcast one more time, his voice tired but firm. This is Admiral Chen Zhao of the United Terran Colonial Navy. You have attacked us without provocation. We have demonstrated that we can destroy you with ease. Stand down immediately, or the next shot will target your homeworlds. You cannot win. You can only die. Choose peace. In the silence that followed, first one alien commander surrendered, then another, then hundreds more. Within 5 minutes, both fleets had transmitted their surrender on all channels. The 50-minute war was over. 800,000 years of conflict between the Vorth and the Thrain had ended, because a human had arrived and crushed them both without even trying very hard. Chen sat in his command chair and put his face in his hands. He had come to make friends. Instead, he had killed hundreds of thousands and terrified millions more. This was not what he had wanted, but it was what had been necessary, and now he had to figure out what to do with two broken civilizations that had just learned they were obsolete. Commander Zhaltev had been prepared for many things in his long military career. He had been prepared for death in battle, for capture by the enemy, for the slow grinding victory or defeat that defined the eternal war. He had not been prepared for this. He stood in a shuttle bay aboard the indomitable Will, surrounded by his honor guard, waiting to meet the being who had destroyed everything he thought he knew about warfare. Beside him, separated by a careful 10 meters and their own honor guard, stood Supreme General Krixtor of the Thrain hegemony. It was the first time in 300,000 years that the supreme commanders of both sides had been in the same physical space. Under any other circumstances, they would have immediately tried to kill each other. But now both stood in shocked silence, trying to process what had happened to them. The human who entered the shuttle bay was smaller than Zhaltev had expected. No armor, no weapons, no ceremonial displays of power. Just a simple dark blue uniform with minimal decoration. Admiral Chen Zhao looked tired, his dark eyes carrying a weight that Zhaltev recognized. It was the look of someone who had done something necessary but terrible. Commander Zhaltev, Supreme General Krixtor, Chen said, his words translated by devices that both aliens wore. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me. I apologize that our first contact was so violent. That was not our intention. Zhaltev's crystalline form flickered with confusion. You apologize? You destroyed our fleets and now you apologize? Yes, Chen said simply. We came here in peace. We did not want to fight, but you attacked us and we defended ourselves. I am sorry that so many of your people died, but I am not sorry that we stopped you from continuing a futile assault. Krixtor's mandibles clicked together rapidly, a sign of agitation. Futile? We are the Thrain hegemony. We have fought for 800,000 years. We have never been defeated. Until today, Chen said quietly, and that's what I want to discuss with you. Both of you. Would you like to tour the ship? I think it will help you understand what has happened. The tour was a nightmare for both alien commanders. Everything they saw challenged their fundamental understanding of reality. The engine room, where exotic matter and antimatter combined in ways they didn't have words for. The medical bay, where injuries that would be fatal to their species could be healed in hours. The living quarters, where individual human crew members had more personal space than most alien officers. But it was the weapons deck that truly broke them. Chen led them to an observation platform overlooking the main armory. Below them stretched rows upon rows of weapons, each one more incomprehensible than the last. Railguns that could fire projectiles at near light speed, antimatter missiles capable of destroying planets, gravity weapons that could tear apart stars, and these were just the weapons on a single ship that humanity considered a heavy explorer, not even a dedicated warship. How? Krixtor whispered, his compound eyes reflecting the lights of the armory. How did your species develop such technology? Chen was quiet for a long moment before answering. We fought. Not for 800,000 years. We've only been a spacefaring civilization for 400 years. But in that time, we fought ourselves with a brutality that nearly exterminated our entire species. Twice. He gestured to a display on the wall, showing images from human history, cities destroyed by nuclear fire, populations ravaged by biological weapons, entire continents rendered uninhabitable by chemical warfare and ecological collapse. We developed nuclear weapons less than 200 years into our industrial age, Chen continued. Within a generation, we had enough to destroy our entire planet hundreds of times over. We called it mutually assured destruction. If anyone started a war, everyone would die. So we lived under that threat for decades, building more weapons, perfecting more ways to kill each other. Zhaltev stared at the images, his light dimming with horror. But you survived. Barely, Chen said. We came within hours of total nuclear war several times. We got lucky. We had leaders who chose peace at the last moment. We had people who worked tirelessly to prevent catastrophe, but we also had scientists who kept developing better weapons, just in case peace failed. He pointed to another set of images, showing bioweapon outbreaks and the mass graves that followed. We created diseases that could kill with perfect efficiency. We made AI weapons that could hunt and kill without human oversight. We even experimented with nanoweapons that could disassemble matter at the molecular level. Why? Crixtor asked, genuinely confused. Why would you create such horrors? Because we were afraid, Chen answered. Each nation feared the others would develop weapons first. So we raced to create the most devastating tools of war we could imagine. We called it an arms race, and it pushed our technology forward at an incredible pace. Every new breakthrough in physics, chemistry, or computer science was immediately weaponized. He turned to face both alien commanders directly. Your war has lasted 800,000 years. But I've read your history broadcasts. I've analyzed your weapons. You've been fighting the same way, with the same technology for nearly all of that time. You stagnated. You made war into a ritual, a tradition, something predictable and safe. You forgot what real war is. And what is real war? Jaltev asked, though he was beginning to understand. Total war, Chen said. War where the goal is not honor or tradition, but absolute victory through any means necessary. War where you innovate constantly because if you don't, your enemy will and they will destroy you. War where you fight not just to win battles, but to make winning future battles easier. That's the kind of war humanity fought against itself. And that's why, in just 400 years, we've developed technology that is centuries beyond yours. He gestured around the ship. The Indomitable Will is not a warship. It's an exploration vessel with defensive capabilities. Our actual military fleet uses weapons and tactics that would seem like magic to you. Not because we're smarter than you, but because we've been forced to innovate by the constant threat of extinction. Crixtor slumped, his chitinous armor seeming to lose its luster. Then we never had a chance. Our ancient war, our honored traditions, our 800,000 years of combat. It was all meaningless. Not meaningless, Chen corrected gently, but inefficient. You were playing at war while humanity was perfecting it. And now humanity has learned from our mistakes. We know that the winner of an arms race is whoever stops racing first. We've chosen peace not because we're weak, but because we know what unrestricted warfare leads to. Extinction. He pulled up another display, showing the human homeworld, Earth, slowly recovering from centuries of ecological damage. We almost destroyed our own planet. We almost killed ourselves. We learned at terrible cost that some things are more important than winning. Survival, for instance. A future for our children. A galaxy where species cooperate instead of slaughtering each other. Jaltev felt something shift inside him. For the first time in his long life, he questioned the war. If humanity, with their devastating technology, had chosen peace, what did that say about the Vorth and Thrain, who had chosen 800,000 years of conflict? What happens now? He asked quietly. Chen's expression was serious. Now you have a choice. You can continue your war and humanity will glass both of your homeworlds. We will not allow a conflict this large to continue near our territory. It's a threat to peace. Or you can accept our mediation. You can end your war. You can spend your energy on rebuilding instead of destroying. You can join the larger galactic community and learn that there's more to existence than combat. That's not a choice, Crixtor said bitterly. That's surrender to you. Yes, Chen agreed, it is. Because you cannot defeat us, and if you try, you will cease to exist. But here's what you need to understand. Humanity doesn't want to rule you. We don't want your territory. We don't want your resources. We just want the killing to stop. He looked between both commanders. Your species have been enemies for longer than most civilizations exist. But from our perspective, you're not that different from each other. You both got trapped in a cycle of violence that you couldn't escape. Well, we're breaking that cycle. We're forcing you to stop. And if you're smart, you'll realize this is an opportunity. An opportunity for what? Jaltev asked. To build something better, Chen said simply. To take all the energy and resources you've been pouring into war and use them for literally anything else. To see what your species can accomplish when you're not trying to kill each other. Maybe you'll surprise yourselves. He turned to leave, then paused. A transport will take you back to your surviving fleets. You have 72 hours to consult with your governments and accept our terms. If you refuse, we will demonstrate what our actual military is capable of. And trust me, you don't want that. The indomitable will is gentle compared to what we'll send next. As Chen left, Jaltev and Krixtor remained standing in the armory observation deck, surrounded by weapons that could end worlds. For the first time in 300,000 years, the two supreme enemies looked at each other not with hatred, but with shared understanding. They had both been defeated by someone who wasn't even trying very hard, and somehow that was the most terrifying realization of all. 6 months had passed since the 50-minute war, and the Calric sector was unrecognizable. The debris fields that had floated in space for millennia were being cleared. Ancient battlegrounds were being converted into construction yards. And on a dozen worlds that had known nothing but military preparation for 800,000 years, people were learning to live in peace. It was not easy. Commander Jaltev, who now held the title of Peace Coordinator for the Vorth Collective, stood in what had once been a military strategy center. The walls, which had displayed tactical information and enemy positions for longer than anyone could remember, now showed construction projects and trade agreements. Beside him, wearing a translator device and looking distinctly uncomfortable, stood Supreme General Krixtor, who held the equivalent position for the Thrain hegemony. "The agricultural report is complete," a young Vorth officer reported, her crystalline form glowing with enthusiasm. "With human assistance, we've converted 17 military worlds to farming. Early estimates suggest we'll have food surpluses within 2 cycles. Food surpluses. Jaltev had to process those words carefully. For his entire life, the Vorth had operated on the edge of scarcity, with every resource dedicated to the war effort. The idea that they might have more than enough of something was alien to him. Krixtor's mandibles clicked, and what Jaltev had learned was a gesture of approval. The Thrain have similar results. 23 breeding worlds have been converted to civilian production. Our population is growing for the first time in 10,000 cycles. It should have filled Jaltev with joy. Instead, he felt hollow. Everything he had dedicated his life to was being dismantled. The military academies were being converted to civilian schools. The weapons factories were producing farming equipment and construction materials. Young Vorth, who would have been trained as warriors, were learning medicine and engineering instead. It was better for everyone. Jaltev knew that intellectually, but emotionally it felt like his entire existence had been declared pointless. "There's resistance," he admitted quietly. "The older officers don't understand this new world. They feel useless. Some are talking about starting the war again in secret." "The Thrain have the same problem," Krixtor replied. "Warriors who know only war do not adapt easily to peace. The humans warned us this would happen." As if summoned by their words, Admiral Chen Zhao entered the coordination center. He looked different than he had 6 months ago. Less tired, perhaps, or maybe just resigned to the role humanity had been forced to take in this sector. "Gentlemen," Chen greeted them, "I've reviewed the latest reports. You're both making excellent progress, better than we expected, honestly. But," Jaltev prompted, sensing the hesitation. "But there's been an incident," Chen said carefully. "A group of Vorth extremists attacked a Thrain colony ship. 15 dead. The attackers were killed by human peacekeepers before they could do more damage, but it's a reminder that peace is fragile." Jaltev's light dimmed with shame. "From my species. I apologize." "And there was a Thrain counterattack planned in response," Chen continued. "We intercepted it. 20 Thrain warriors with stolen weapons, planning to strike a Vorth civilian settlement. We've arrested them, but the point is that both sides still have elements that want the war to continue." Krixtor's compound eyes focused on Chen. "What would you have us do? Execute everyone who disagrees with peace?" "No," Chen said firmly. "Humanity tried that. It doesn't work. You need to give these people a purpose, something to do with their lives that isn't warfare. Some of them can be retrained. The ones who can't, well, we have a proposal." He pulled up a star map showing a region of space far from both Vorth and Thrain territory. "There's a sector here that's been having problems with pirates. Real pirates, not military forces. They're disrupting trade and attacking colonies. Humanity doesn't have enough ships to patrol the region effectively, but we thought perhaps some of your warriors might volunteer for a peacekeeping force. Give them a way to use their skills for something constructive." Jaltev considered the proposal. It was clever. Take the warriors who couldn't adapt and give them an enemy they could fight without reigniting the old war. It might actually work. "I'll discuss it with the council," he said. Chen nodded and then pulled out a datapad. "There's another matter. Humanity has been analyzing your historical records. We wanted to understand how your war started. We thought maybe if we could explain the original cause, it would help both sides accept the peace." "And?" Krixtor asked, interested despite himself. Chen looked uncomfortable. "We found the original incident. It was documented in archives that were 800,000 years old. Records that neither of your species had accessed in millennia. Would you like to know what started your war?" Both alien commanders nodded, suddenly tense. This was the mystery that had haunted both their civilizations for longer than most species had existed. "A trade dispute," Chen said flatly. "A Vorth merchant sold defective mining equipment to a Thrain colony. The colony demanded a refund. The merchant refused. It escalated to a diplomatic incident. Both governments took their citizens' side. Small skirmishes began, then larger battles. Within a generation, both sides had committed so many resources to the conflict that they couldn't afford to stop. Within a century, no one remembered the original cause. They just knew they were at war. The silence that followed was profound. "A trade dispute?" Shaltev repeated, his voice barely a whisper. 800,000 years. Millions of dead. Countless worlds devastated. "Because of a trade dispute?" "Because neither side would back down," Chen corrected. "Because pride and honor became more important than peace. Because the war became your identity and you forgot how to be anything else." Krixtor made a sound that might have been laughter or sobbing. "It was hard to tell with Thrain. We're idiots, both of us. Complete idiots." "You're not idiots," Chen said. "You're just what happens when a conflict goes on too long. You're what humanity nearly became. That's why we're being so aggressive about enforcing this peace. We recognize the pattern because we've lived it." He pulled up another display showing Earth and its history. "We had wars that lasted centuries. Religious conflicts, territorial disputes, ethnic hatreds. And every one of them seemed important at the time, critical, worth dying for. But from the perspective of centuries later, most of them were revealed to be stupid, pointless wastes of life." "How did humanity stop?" Shaltev asked. "We almost didn't," Chen admitted. "We came within hours of destroying ourselves multiple times. What saved us was a combination of luck, wisdom from a few key leaders, and most importantly, exhaustion. We got tired of killing each other. We realized that we could accomplish so much more working together than fighting apart. So we made the hard choice to forgive old grievances and build something new." He gestured around the coordination center, at the Vorth and Thrain working together. "That's what you're doing now. And it's harder for you because you have 800,000 years of hatred to overcome. But you're doing it. Slowly, painfully, but you're doing it." In orbit above the coordination center, the indomitable Will hung in space like a guardian. It had been joined by 3 other human ships, part of the peacekeeping force that would remain in the Calric sector for the foreseeable future. The presence of those ships was a constant reminder to both the Vorth and Thrain that humanity was watching, ready to intervene if the old war sparked again. Admiral Chen Zhao returned to his ship later that day, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He had been tasked with exploration, with making first contact with alien species and establishing friendly relations. Instead, he had become a conqueror, an enforcer, a babysitter for 2 ancient civilizations that were learning how to coexist. He sat in his ready room, a small private office off the main bridge, and began his personal log entry for the day. 6 months since the incident, he recorded. "The peace is holding, but it's fragile. Both species are making genuine efforts, but old hatreds die hard. We've had to intervene in 17 separate incidents where groups from both sides tried to restart the violence. Each time we've responded with overwhelming force to make it clear that the war is over. Each time I wonder if we're building peace or just enforcing compliance through fear." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "I think about those 50 minutes a lot. The ships we destroyed, the lives we ended. I justified it as necessary, as the only way to stop a greater catastrophe. But was it? Could we have found another way? Should we have just left this sector and let them continue their war? No, I don't believe that. What we did was right, but that doesn't make it feel good. We came to the stars hoping to find friends, and instead we became the galaxy's police force. We showed these species the face of humanity, and it was a face twisted by violence and power." He looked out his window at the stars beyond. "The irony is that our capability for such devastating warfare comes from the very thing we're trying to prevent. Humanity nearly destroyed itself learning how to wage war efficiently. Now we use that knowledge to stop others from making our mistakes. We're the reformed addict telling everyone else that drugs are bad. We're the recovered gambler warning about the dangers of the casino. Maybe that's appropriate. Maybe the only species qualified to enforce peace is one that truly understands the cost of war. Chen ended his log and pulled up the latest intelligence reports. Other human exploration ships were making contact with other species throughout the galaxy. Most of those contacts were peaceful. Some were not. And in every case where violence occurred, humanity's response was the same. Overwhelming force, immediate cessation of hostilities, and forced peace. The galaxy was learning to fear humanity, not because humans were cruel or aggressive, but because humans had perfected warfare to such a degree that resistance was pointless. It was effective. It was saving lives, but Chen couldn't shake the feeling that they were creating a future where peace existed only because everyone was too terrified to fight. Was that really better than the alternative? He didn't know. He suspected he never would. In the Calric sector, construction continued on a monument. It was being built jointly by Vorth and Thrain workers, overseen by human engineers. When completed, it would be a massive structure visible from orbit, carved with the names of every ship and every warrior who had died in the 800,000-year war. At its base, a simple inscription in 3 languages, 800,000 years of warfare. Ended in 50 minutes. May we never forget the cost of stagnation or the price of peace. It was a memorial, a warning, and a promise. The Calric sector would remember what it had been and what it had become. And across the galaxy, other species were watching, learning, and making their own choices about whether to risk humanity's attention. The age of small wars was ending. In its place, enforced by beings who had mastered the art of destruction and then learned to fear their own creations, came an era of cautious peace. Whether that peace would last, whether it would grow into genuine cooperation and friendship, or whether it would eventually collapse under its own weight, remained to be seen. But for now, in this moment, the killing had stopped. And that, Chen decided, would have to be enough.